Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay. Built in Atlanta, OnPay is the top-rated payroll and HR software anywhere. Get 1 month free at onpay.com. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to mention our sponsor, OnPay. So please support them so that we can continue to share these important stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have Tim Westover, and he is an author and a publisher, and he's going to tell us about his latest work. Welcome, Tim.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us about life as an author. What's that like?
Well, right now it is a lonely, solitary life, but that's not really that different from the writing process. Getting up early in the morning and working hard, just staying as disciplined as possible in front of the computer, setting your tasks and goals for the day, and then starting the rest of your day at your day job as soon as that's done. For when we're not in pandemic situations, I am trying to travel as much as possible. I consider myself a Southern author and one who tries to stay very close to the history of the places that are featured in my books and honor that tradition of the history of these places. So that involves traveling all over the state, all the way up to the mountains, all the way down to the coast, and being on site as much as possible at historical places, talking to locals, talking to people who have that cultural memory of folk tales and legends and strange events that may be vanishing now as we are always moving forward.
Now, is being an author, is that your main source of income, or do you have a day job?
No, I am a computer programmer for a medical laboratory software company. And so that is a very different kind of pursuit than being a historical fiction author.
So how did you kind of go down this path? What did it start out as just a hobby, and then you just started getting more and more into it? Like, what was the kind of catalyst to say, when I'm going to write an actual book and I'm going to publish it?
Sure. It was really curiosity on my commute. So I work in downtown Lawrenceville, and being stuck in traffic, as we all are in Atlanta from time to time, you're bored, you're looking around, you see street signs like Honest Alley and Calaboose Alley. And well, that's kind of weird. I wonder what the story behind that is. And just the curiosity of that, looking into that Honest Alley in Lawrenceville was named that ironically because it was the least honest place in town in the 19th century. It's where everyone got together to swap mules and horses, where people were not always on the up and up about the quality of those mules and horses, and where the patent medicine sellers with their miracle cures and their Grove's tasteless chill tonic would come and hawk their wares. And following those weird and interesting to me stories, collecting as many of them as possible, and then weaving those stories together into a fictional one that is against as much historically accurate backdrop as possible.
Now, when you were growing up, were you always writing things, and then you said, you know what, I can take some of those skills and then just really flesh out a story that goes beyond just maybe a story, but to fill a book?
No, that was really something that came along a little later in life. I was a computer game and video game kid, like so many of my generation. and was much closer to the programming aspect of things. But I think as I got older and how my day job fills that half of my brain with the math and logic and patterns of programming, looking for something that was more of a creative outlet, that has ended up being fairly successful for me as a side hustle, and now moving more and more into the main hustle.
So now let's talk about your latest book, The Winter Sisters. What's that about?
So that is the story of a fussy, stuck-up doctor from Savannah in the early 19th century who is called up to Lawrenceville, Georgia, to help deal with the medical needs of the people there on it would have been the frontier at the time, right at the edge of Cherokee territory. And when he gets there, he finds that they don't really need what would have been modern medicine of 1822, which is blistering and bleeding and leeches and the four humors. The townsfolk there get their medicine from the Winter Sisters, who are three young women that practice folk medicine and folk rituals that also would have been in circulation at the time in the early 19th century in the Appalachians. So that's putting a knife under your bed to cut the pain, or stealing a wash rag from your neighbor and using that to cure your warts, or pouring wax into a silver bowl at midnight to see what shapes it takes, and using that as a diagnostic tool. And some of that seems silly to us, but then there's other medicines that were in use at the time, anything from quinine, which would actually work for malaria, to willow bark, which is one of the sources of our aspirin, antibiotics that are naturally found in the ground. There's a ridiculous folktale of people who would take a piece of moldy bread and put it on their wounds, and those wounds would magically heal. But that's where we got penicillin from. It's the natural antibiotic properties of certain funguses and other organisms that we find in the ground, and just how much actual science was being done, even though people were. It's so easy to dismiss this as superstition, but really this is folk science as much as it is folk superstition.
Well, I'm sure at the time people were trying all kinds of crazy things, and then if something worked, they just used that one more, and it got probably spread by word of mouth. And
right, and
good.
And the modern medicine of the time, the best that they could offer you was, well, here's some morphine, if you're lucky, and amputation, but we can't do surgery. We don't understand germ theory. The best thing that we can do for you is we'll just bleed you 10 ounces and see how you feel in the morning. And you're not going to feel any better. You're going to feel a lot better if you have some chicken soup, which is going to rehydrate you and replenish your electrolytes.
Now, when you're doing this kind of research and you're going back kind of in time to these, during these times, there were kind of pandemics happening, epidemics happening, plagues happening around the world at the time. Did you get any insight that maybe kind of that we can carry forward to the pandemic we're going through in today?
Oh, yeah, you would have all kinds of pandemics. Malaria being endemic, you would have yellow fever as a very common one. The particular pandemic, more of an epidemic in this case, is rabies in the Winter Sisters, which is still a very fearsome disease. It's not one that spreads person to person, It's just animal to person, but it's something that if you can get the vaccine within a couple of days of exposure to an animal, you'll be all right. But beyond that, it's inevitably fatal. It's still a very scary disease. So I guess the lessons from that would apply to this particular pandemic from the book would be just the strength of the community, how people can come together in these times to not fear each other, but to draw strength from each other. And it's so hard because this pandemic is isolating us in our homes away from the people that would help us, build us up, support us, strengthen us. But at least we do have, in the modern era, we have our FaceTime and we have our Facebook, that for all of the ills they may cause us at other times, they do keep us connected and build our resilience in our, I don't want to say a spiritual sense, but in our mental sense. There's healing that goes on in the mind as well as within the body. Not from a mystical point of view, but the body's own defenses, its own internal systems depend on our mental well-being, as well as on and work in tandem with the medical treatment that we receive. And just having that strength or that resilience, that support from the community can heal us and keep us well.
Yeah, hopefully, and it'll help keep people sane, and hopefully it passes and we can get through this one. Now, this book of yours, The Winter Sisters, has won some awards, and it's on sale. Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, so all of the proceeds that I've raised from the book so far have been donated. And the cause that I've been supporting through the sales so far has been Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and specifically their child life department, which is that complementary arm of the medical arm of child life, of children's healthcare. You have the doctors who are fighting the disease, and then you have child life that is helping the children feel normal, play some video games and be a kid, forget that you have a terrible disease for a minute, and give the parents a break who are also mentally exhausted from caring for their children. So in the sale so far, we've raised over $50,000 for the child life department there. There's a sale going on right now on the book. It's 99 cents on Kindle. It's also available in print and other sources, and any proceeds that come from the sale of the book for the next week up until next Tuesday, instead of being earmarked for child life, are being sent to the Southeast Gwinnett Co-op, which is here in the Lawrenceville-Grayson area. That is our food bank that serves this area. And they have a tremendous need right now because of the pandemic, because of people who are out of work. Their needs have skyrocketed. There was so much traffic here the other day that before the National Guard was called out for our other crisis that's going on, we had the National Guard here in Grayson to help direct traffic. We had a police helicopter, and we have 8 streets. We've never seen the National Guard and a police helicopter to direct traffic because so many people needed the resources of the food bank.
Yeah.
So for this particular sale, that's where the proceeds are going. if we can raise $1,000, $2,000 for them during this week, that would go a long way to helping some of the families that are really in need right now.
Now, going through the process of writing the book and publishing the book, you've decided to self-publish. Is that right?
I have, yeah.
Now, can you talk a little bit, maybe for the listeners who have thought about doing this on their own, but is there some tips that you would have for a first-time self-publisher?
Yeah, and that is do a lot of research on the process. There's a lot of good advice. There's a lot of bad advice. It's the more you read about it before you do any of it or spend any of your money on it, the more you're going to be able to tell the difference between the good advice and the bad advice. It's going to depend on your particular niche, your particular industry, to know what's good advice for you and bad advice for you. Something that works for a historical romance writer is going to be very different from someone who's writing a self-help book or a business advice book. But there are also a lot of people out there that prey on the hopes of the self-publishing community. So there are so many businesses that are willing to take your money and provide a subpar service, because as self-publishers, we believe in our book. We think it has the ability to go big, make a big difference. And there are people that will know that impulse in us and will promise the moon, and they can't deliver the moon. Nobody can deliver the moon. So just doing your research, being cautious, is going to be the right path in this case. So
you're saying there's snake oil salesmen in this industry?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're going to have a panacea, a cure-all that will take you to number one on Amazon, and either they will not take you to number one on Amazon, or the tactics that they are using to take you to number one on Amazon will get you banned from Amazon. So that is something that just explore, just read articles, and educate yourself. The other thing to keep in mind is if you are self-publishing a book, a publisher is not a person. A publisher is a team. So at a big house publisher, you're going to have a dedicated person or team that is going to help you edit your book. You're going to have a separate team for proofreading. You're going to have a separate team for marketing, another team for your layout, for your cover, for your graphics, for your media plan and advertising. And as a self-publisher, you also need a team. You may have a skill that a personal skill that can help with one or more of those areas, but you are absolutely going to need professional outside help for those other elements. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of, well, I'm gonna do this myself because I can do this myself. It's that, just like a big publisher, you're going to build a team of many different experts in these areas who are going to help you separate the good cures from the snake oil, who are going to help you put together a quality professional product. And that's going to be your best chance of success.
Now, if somebody wanted to learn more about your work, where should they go?
Sure. I have a lot up on my website, which is timwestover.com. There's links to the book there. There's links to the sales, links to Amazon where you can get that, or links to independent bookstores that also have that available. There's information about the donations that have been made, the different causes that are supported by the sales of the book. And I'd encourage you to check that out. And if you feel inclined, get in touch with me through there.
Good stuff. Well, Tim, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio. And remember, without the support of our sponsor, OnPay, we could not be telling these important stories. So please support them so we can continue to share these stories.
Today's episode of Atlanta Business Radio is brought to you by OnPay. Built in Atlanta, OnPay is the top-rated payroll and HR software anywhere. Get 1 month free at onpay.com.